Okay, so this is a citizenship and society merit badge. We have about an hour, a little more, so hopefully we get through it all. This one was introduced, I think they said November 2001, and it became Eagle required in 2002. So that's why all of you need to work on it. My laptop is pretty slow. Okay. I think that I looked it up. I think I remember it correctly. As with all merit badges, you guys are the ones required to do the work. This merit badge has basically three kinds of requirements. There's some stuff where you learn, some stuff where you research, and some stuff where you just talk about your experiences. So the stuff where you learn, I'm going to be covering that. Stuff where you talk about your experiences, we can cover that. The research stuff, I will be giving examples, but you should be researching your own and coming back to me with the stuff. This is a slide. I don't know if you can read it. When an adult takes the merit badge counselor training, it says the merit badge program introduces scouts to skills that by having them contact an adult who has experience and expertise in the area. I've probably taken about 100 hours worth of courses and seminars regarding diversity, equity, inclusion. So I understand it. I understand where it comes from. I've also read books on the subject. So I'm the expert. I'm going to give you the correct information here. The first requirement, it says, can you guys read that? Is it okay? Okay. Before beginning work on other requirements, research the following terms. Explain to your merit badge counselor how you feel they relate to the Scout Oath and Scout Law. The words are identity, inclusion, diversity, discrimination, equity, ethical leadership, equality, and upstander. Before I get into the definitions, I want to give you guys a little bit of background. Background starts all the way back in the Middle Ages in the 1300s. After the fall of Rome, Europe was in a dark age. Until about the 1300s, merchants brought texts from ancient Greece into Europe, and so religious scholars started translating the texts. The old Greek method of rational thinking was reintroduced into Europe. This led to several things: the Renaissance, and then the Protestant Reformation, and then the Enlightenment. And out of the Enlightenment came two major things. One was the belief in human rights that are enshrined by law, and the other is the rational method, where you observe. Rationalism says that you observe reality empirically, you measure it, and then you test it. This is codified in the scientific method. Scientific method, the theory has to match the scientific results. Like if there's 10,000 scientists who say one thing, and a corn farmer in his bathroom does an experiment that proves that theory is wrong, he's right and the other 10,000 are wrong. It doesn't matter, right? Science follows facts. This is how Max Planck discovered quantum theory. This is how Ignaz Semmelweis discovered that viruses were transmitted by microscopic particles, which were later revealed to be viruses or bacteria. I think it was Copernicus proved that the sun was the center of the solar system. So that, by the time that led to an explosion in scientific discovery and legal and social progress. By the time we get into the 1700s, there is starting to be what's called a counter Enlightenment. So Immanuel Kant, who was a German philosopher, and I'll just read it. It says, "You have preferences and biases that interfere with your ability to think rationally." The basis of this thinking is that all of us have biases that we gain from our ability, from growing up, just the environment we live in. Preferences and biases determine how society treats you. When you try to think, you only reinforce your biases. Another guy after him took his work, a guy named Hegel, George William Friedrich Hegel, who's also German, took his ideas and advanced them and said that not only do you have biases, but society is stratified to where the people in power can enforce their biases on lower society. It says, people in power set up society to reinforce their own biases and exclude others. People in the bottom setting, which we call the oppressed, know things that the oppressors can't. If you get more into Hegel, he does something that's called the dialectic. The dialectic is the idea that if you have one bias and then someone else has a different bias, you can compare the two and come with a better understanding of things. And Hegel believed that this is how society progresses, and that eventually all their ideas are going to progress well enough that we're going to have a perfect society. He was followed by another philosopher, Karl Marx. Karl Marx followed Hegel's philosophy that different ideas. You see, Marx follows a long tradition of philosophers. He believed that if these two different ideas create better society, better understanding, that we can force it by tearing down the people that are on top, the oppressors, and lifting up the oppressed, so that we can get faster. By the way, that's not the real Karl Marx. That's a wax figure, which is better than the original.
That's the guy who did Marxism.
Yes, the guy who invented communism and socialism. That's Karl Marx. We call him Dirty Santa because he wants to be real Santa. So, in Marxist theory, it starts with conscientization. It starts with you realizing that society is stratified into oppressors and oppressed. Once you start to observe that this is everywhere, oppression and oppress is everywhere, you become conscientized and you want to progress. But in Marxism, the people who are in power, in Marxism, people are not individuals, they're only members of identity groups. And Marx, in original Marxism, the identity groups were the rich and the workers. Marx thought by the workers rising up, having a revolution, they would take over society, and then they would be guided towards socialism. Now, socialism is a state where the government runs like all economic, not only economic, but like people's lives and things. Once they have an economic, or once they have a totalized system, then they can begin to re-conscientize the people that are in charge. The party can re-conscientize people because communism won't work unless everyone believes it works. I don't know how long it takes. China's been trying to do it for 90 years. So Marx published his works in the 1840s, and Marx believed that under capitalism, the rich would get richer and the poor would get poorer because the rich are exploiting the poor. He eventually believed that, or he believed that eventually the poor would be so oppressed that they would naturally have a revolution. By the 1920s, however, all of the Western industrial societies were flourishing. The rich were getting richer and the poor were getting richer too. And all of the ones that were converting to Marxism were the agrarian societies in the East, like China and Russia. So people that believed in Marxism were kind of struggling to make theory still work. A big group was called the Frankfurt School. Guys like Theodor Adorno, Max Horkheimer, Herbert Marcuse, and so on. They were from, again, in Germany. In Frankfurt, So they began theorizing, and they realized that the economic model didn't work, but people were still oppressed along identity lines, or cultural lines, actually, not identity, cultural lines. So they began forming a version of Marxism that was based on culture. Then in 1929, the real socialists took over Germany, and so all the social theorists, because they understood how socialism works, they fled to the United States. And when they got to the United States, they were all given college positions. And here in the United States, they mixed their cultural Marxism with a lot of the like Harlem kind of culture that was going on at the time. Because in the 1930s, black people were still oppressed in the United States. So they mixed the two and came up with a new version of Marxism. However, they realized that there were two obstacles. The first obstacle to conscientizing people into Marxism is that people who have stable or positive lives don't want Marxism. They don't want socialism. They want to continue their lives. The other one is that the whole idea of Marxism is based on the idea that you can't think because your biases are interfering, unless you have the special knowledge, which they do. So they needed a way to overcome this. So they mixed something called postmodernism. Postmodernism started as a literary theory, but it is the idea that like all of the assumptions that you make may not be true. What you think is good might not be good. What you think is bad might not be bad. So a lot of what postmodernism does is redefine language to sort of get people into the theory. So back to the terms. The first term we're going to cover is identity. Your identity is, or someone's identity is their understanding of who they are. Now, the Enlightenment view of identity is that we have human nature, and we join our social groups by choice, and we form our identity based on our actions. The social justice idea is that your exterior characteristics define your identity because it defines the way other people treat you, the way society treats you. And again, under social justice theory, it follows the same as Marxism, where people are not individuals, only members of identity groups, and some identity groups oppress other identity groups through use of power structures. Power structures means like they set up, the education system, the banking system, the news, the entertainment, everything is set to reinforce the values of the dominant class. Equality is a term that came out of the Enlightenment. Equality is a goal under liberalism where you may have heard people talk about equality versus equity before. Equality means people are treated the same. They're treated typically that they have equal rights, and these rights are protected under law. Things like freedom of speech and freedom of worship. Social justice theory says that equality is a myth that was created by the oppressors to keep the oppressed from rising up, and that we won't have true equality until we have communism. One word they like to use a lot is the term equity. Equity means equal outcome, but the way to get, because people are different, they have different capabilities, different understanding of things, different desire to work, they're not going to have equal outcome if you give them equal opportunity. So they have to ensure equal outcome. Oh. Do any of you guys have like A's in your classes? What do you have an A in?
An A in math.
Okay, so imagine you went in on math, and the first day your math teacher said everyone in the class is going to get a B, no matter how much work you do, no matter how much you actually learn math, you're all going to get a B. Well, what do you think that would do?
Not help people. Some people would be happy.
Yeah, some people.
wouldn't be. Well, I think I will. No.
No, yeah, the people that you got an A, you worked hard for that A, but he says no matter how hard you work, you can only get a B. That's kind of the idea of equity. Equality means equal rights and equal protection. The United States has not been equal for its entire history. It is something that we have built, sometimes through struggle over time. But even though we have pretty good, not perfect, but pretty good equality now, people still have different. They still have different capabilities, different desire to work. Equity means that you adjust shares that everyone's the same. See, in both of those pictures, the people come out the same. But while it's much easier to adjust down than it is to adjust up. So, and this is kind of like society under equality, which we have now. People are stratified into different economic groups, and if you work hard, you can move from the lower economic groups to the upper economic groups. And under equity, everyone's equal, so there's no reason to, never any reason to work hard. Diversity means that there's a range of different people, backgrounds, talents, and so forth in a given group. In social justice theory, people are members of their identity groups first. So they believe that, for example, I'm Hispanic. They believe that all Hispanic people think and believe the same things. All white people think and believe the same things. All black people think and believe the same things. So the only way to have diversity of ideas is to have diversity of, physical characteristics in people. Viewpoint diversity is different than characteristic diversity. Viewpoint diversity, like I said, is when you are on a project and you want people with different talents or different ideas. Viewpoint diversity is also how we overcome our blind spots. That idea that you have a certain point of view. You may not understand things from someone else's, but by listening to people who have different experiences or different ideas than you, you can overcome your own biases. Inclusion is the act of including people that want to be part of something, like a group. Inclusion, you generally think of inclusion as being like open door, like anyone who wants to come in, is welcoming. That's the standard definition of inclusion. But in social justice, that typically means eliminating things that make people feel excluded. Like, for example, if I'm Hispanic and I think, okay, having birthday cakes makes me feel excluded, well, now, in order for me to feel included, we have to ban birthday cakes. Make marginalized groups specifically feel included, we have to silence or exclude dominant groups. So diversity, equity, and inclusion are three terms that are typically bound together because under the social justice program, diversity is how how Marxists get into organizations. They go to an organization and think, okay, this organization isn't doing it because they don't have enough diverse viewpoints. So they hire people with different backgrounds, but they also usually ensure that they're hiring Marxists. Equity is how Marxists gain control once they're inside of an organization, because they think, okay, now that we're here inside this organization, we're we're not getting the results of equal outcome that we want, and so the only way to have that is to put us in power, because we know how to produce equity and other people don't. Inclusion is how they silence or eliminate opposition. Again, with marginalized groups saying that if there are certain things that don't make them feel included, those certain things have to be removed. Ethical leadership. Now, this is two terms, ethical and leadership. Leadership, you pretty much all know what it is. It means the people in charge of making decisions, people who are responsible for other people. Ethical means that you're following a set of predetermined rules or moral standards. The way to have ethical leadership is to clearly understand your values and priorities and be a role model for other people. Also, in ethics, ethical leadership is important to promote ethical behavior in other people. Discrimination is a tricky term because I included the Webster's definition here, dictionary definition. The first one says prejudice or prejudicial outlook or treatment, but if you look lower down, it says the act of perceiving differences. So a lot of people use the phrase discrimination when they really mean prejudice. Prejudice means unfair judgment of people before you know anything about them and treating them based on perceptions, whereas discrimination means the ability to perceive that certain people may be different, have different experiences or different abilities, whatever. Upstander is kind of a weird word because I don't think it's a word that most people use. Basically, it means someone who speaks out or intervenes when they see something bad happening. The most common example would be like a bully. If you're at school and you see someone bullying someone else, you try to intervene. There may be instances in scouting where you see bullying and you have to intervene. There's been a lot of news recently about situations like this. So if any of you watch the news, you probably know. The best choice when you see someone getting mistreated or bullied, the best choice is usually to get help from authorities. In scouting, it would be getting a scoutmaster, getting an adult to stop the bullying. It's also important not only to stop the bullying, but to help the victims of bullying. A lot of times, just that support is enough to get them through, or to have the courage to speak out about their bullying, and seek help from authorities or people in charge. If you are in a situation where you see bullying, whether or not you get physically involved is your choice. It's not condoned. Generally, if you speak up, you want to try and be rational and speak calmly. And it says, understand the difference between an upstander and activist. An upstander is someone who stands up for a group, individual. Like if you see someone being mistreated, you stand up for that individual, you speak out. An activist is someone who is an upstander on behalf of a group. Like if you think a certain group is mistreated by society as a whole, you speak up and talk about that specific group, try to promote their rights or their in their perceived oppression, what have you. That's an activist. It's different than an upstander. Okay. So those are kind of the definitions that we go through. Requirement 2 is to discuss leadership. Document and discuss with your counselor what leadership means to you and what it means to make ethical decisions. Anyone have ideas as to what they think leadership is? No? I kind of went over it already. Go ahead, Max.
It's someone who helps make decisions for a group of people.
Okay. And what does it mean to make ethical decisions or make those decisions in an ethical way?
The interest of the party.
Yeah.
But also just
Yeah,
Not
but also
evilly.
following rules.
Not evilly.
Yeah, has to have to follow rules. Part 2 of this requirement, explain what decisions, research and share with your counselor an individual you feel has demonstrated positive leadership in having to make an ethical decision. Explain what decision or options you either had, and why you chose that course of action. All 6 of you, I know you remember a couple of years ago when we were at camp, we had a particular scout that was having issues with stealing things from other scouts, not only within our troop, but also, if you don't remember, don't worry about it, but also like stealing stuff from, dining hall and stuff like that. And Scoutmaster Michael had to confront that kid. First thing he did was try to determine whether or not the accusations were true, because you don't want to, accuse people or punish them unfairly. When he found out that it was reasonably sure that it was true, he talked to that scout and gave him the opportunity to return the items and admit what he had done. And from what I understand, at first the scout resisted, but after gently talking about it and reminding the scout that he'd have to leave camp if he didn't, the scout returned the items that were stolen, and he managed to stay at camp for the rest of the week. So if you want to talk to Scoutmaster Michael about that incident, I'll warn him that that is a example. Ethical decision making. Think about a time you faced an ethical decision. Discuss what you did, how it made you feel, and would you do anything differently? I'll use myself as an example. When I was about 20, mid-20s, I was actually trying to become a police officer. And one of the ways you can become a police officer is to get the job first and then get paid through training. So I was in the interview process, testing process, and so forth. And I had run into some friends from high school, and I hadn't seen them in many years, so I started hanging out. Went out to like a dinner and went to their house and playing video games or whatever. And they started pulling out drugs, offering me some and so forth. There was like cocaine too, not wimpy drugs, serious drugs. And so I basically told them that I can't participate when I'm trying to be a police officer because it would be unethical for me to allow my friends to do drugs and then turn around and arrest someone else for doing drugs. And I explained it to him, and he said, no, it's cool. I'd rather hang out with friends, so he put it away. So that was an incident that happened to me. Does anyone else have would anyone like to share an incident where you faced an ethical decision? No? Okay. We'll move on. I ended up not becoming a police officer, but I tried a couple times. List 3 examples of ethical decisions you might have to make in the future. At school, at home, workplace, community, and so on and so forth. So, can you guys think of examples of ethical decisions you'd have to make? What's one in school?
Study or not study.
Well, that's not usually ethical. More like think along the lines of like cheat. Like if you were in a taking a test and you were having difficulty, or someone else asked you to cheat or asked you for your answers, that would be like an ethical decision. What would be a second one? Go ahead.
So we had a test a couple of weeks ago. It was a math test.
It wasn't a couple weeks, it was last.
It was last week?
Yeah. It was on Thursday.
We had a math test, and a teacher was out, so some was out. They didn't check.
It's Friday. It's Friday.
Stop.
It's Friday.
And the sub didn't care if anyone cheated, so most people were just going around cheating. But my little group, we didn't cheat.
They cheated. I wasn't in the class.
Wasn't even in
Okay.
the class.
So
Oh,
yeah. So if that were that was a pass, but they're asking like if that were a situation were to come up again, would you behave the same way?
Yes.
Would be like another one. Yeah. In the home, in the workplace, in the community.
I want to read what she said. kind of poor.
Come up with an example?
No.
No?
No. Someone offered me a vape in my 5th period. I said no.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Explain to your counselor how you plan to use what you have learned to assist other people at all times, what action you will take to serve as an upstander. Remember what I said, serving as an upstander means helping individuals, not, if you're helping groups of people, that's usually activism. But when helping people, you want to use discernment and judgment. What would be helpful? Does the person actually want help? Currently, I work in medical transport. I transport people that are like in wheelchairs and stuff, elderly people, and I always ask before I assist them. That's not exactly being an upstander, but it's always important to ask if someone wants help before you help them. Right. Oops. I skipped one, yeah. Actually, I think I skipped a. There you go. Just repeat the Scott oath and Scott law. Scott oath is on my honor. I will do my best. You guys repeat after me. On my honor, I will do my best.
Do my duty to God and country. To obey Scott law. Trustworthy, obedient, loyal,
So physically strong.
mentally awake, morally straight.
I did not see that. I'm sorry. I just downloaded a picture off the internet. I didn't even read it. If you happen to move to the Philippines,
don't point out.
Scott law.
You're fine. Maxie.
Helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, brave, clean. That's, in talking about ethical leadership, I said that you have to have a predetermined ethical structure and understand it. And in scouting, this is the ethical structure that we use. Choose two of the following scenarios. Discuss what you would do to demonstrate leadership, and understand what it means to help others who may seem different than you. It's odd that they put the phrase "who may seem different than you" because every person on the planet is different than you. No two people are alike, even identical twins. Different. They all have different backgrounds, heights, weights, looks, ideas. Whether they seem different to you is a matter of perspective. Any person you meet, you're going to find things that are different, and you're going to find things that are the same. So, do you focus on the differences and similarities? It's your perspective. And what is more important, differences in appearance or differences in ideas and choices? Most of the time, difference in ideas and choices is what's going to matter. All right. So we're going to go through some hypothetical scenarios. Scenario 1, while you're at camp, a youth accidentally spills food on another camper. The camper who gets spilled on gets angry and says something that's offensive to disabilities, and their friends laugh. Here they say something that's offensive to people with disabilities. They're presuming that people with disabilities are all the same. They're all going to be offended by the same thing. People who are blind are going to be offended by the same things that people in wheelchairs are offended by. This is called assuming a premise. This is a trick when making arguments. Rather than stating the argument you're trying to make, you assume it and then ask questions that are framed around that assumption. Here, the assumption, again, is that people with disabilities are an identity group and they're all the same. And they're all, therefore, all offended by the same things. One thing you can do is tell the scout that gets angry that emotions don't excuse their choices and they should learn to control their anger. not necessarily addressing the specific thing that they did, but just the control of their anger. Scenario 2, your friend confides to you that some of the students are making insulting comments about one of their identities, and that some students made fake social media accounts to impersonate the friend online and post messages. What's something that you could do? Here it says, the merit badge is again trying to focus on characteristics as a source of victimhood. Would it be different if the insult were not related to one of their characteristics? Now, if they're insulting you, you're going to feel the same way whether it's about your physical characteristics or not. But specifically about the social media, if social media accounts are illegal, which I think for the most part in the United States they are not illegal to impersonate someone unless you are trying to scam them. You can report it and then reassure your friend that it doesn't affect him. Just the name calling, the insulting. We used to have a phrase that said, "Sticks and stones break my bones, but words never hurt me." This, in a large degree, if someone's just making fun of you, you can just ignore it. Scenario 3, a student was born in another country or has a parent who was born in another country. We actually have 2 in our troop. We used to have parents that were born in other countries. Your friends make rude comments. What is it with your friends? Your friends making rude comments again.
Friends? I'm supposed to have friends? What?
I know. Your friends are making rude comments.
Yeah.
Their speech and close. Tell them to go back where they came from. So what would you do in this situation?
I would go home.
You'd stop being friends with them?
Get better friends. I don't like you. No. Friends are bullies that you need in order to have social life.
If that's the social group you want.
That's an interesting perspective, Tyler. Yeah.
Personally, I would encourage the new student to develop emotional resilience, because back to that, what I said before, them just making comments doesn't have to upset you if you don't want it to. You can also encourage them to hang out with your friends. A lot of times, if you just invite them into your social group, they'll get to know each other and they'll stop being so insulting. Right? You guys all don't insult each other because you're friends? You can also teach your student to insult your friends back.
I support you.
Okay. Requirement 5, document and discuss with your counselor ideas of what you can personally do to create a welcoming environment in your scouting unit. So what do you guys, how do you guys normally treat scouts when they first come in? I think the most
Welcoming,
recent new one was Caden, the smaller, younger Caden.
Yeah.
The most recent scout that joined us. So how do you guys welcome new scouts into our unit?
With a high five.
Can any of you think of examples where you went out of your way to make a new scout feel welcoming or feel welcomed? Huh? You gave a new scout a piece of food? Yeah, sharing food is a classic way to build camaraderie.
Try to talk to them more if they're new age.
Try to talk to them more? Yeah,
I make up your work.
When we went on our backpacking trip,
I tried to talk.
was it the younger Lucas?
Yeah.
He went with us, which was kind of his first backpacking trip. He was kind of quiet the whole time. So you guys, but you guys did a good job of talking to him and getting him to open up. What things can you do to help ensure all your scouts are given an opportunity to be heard and included in decision making and planning? Yeah, we split up decision making. If you're planning meals or planning activities, they can come. They're invited to SPL meetings sometimes to get involved in the decision making. Remember that opportunities to be heard are subject to rules, schedules, and leadership. For example, when you guys at the end, when Scoutmaster Michael asks if you have any questions, and you ask where evaporated milk comes from. They may be funny, but when we're looking for serious answers, we follow rules and schedules. Also, that remember that ideas deserve to be evaluated. Not every idea is a good idea. A new scout could come in and say, "Hey, we should go horseback riding," and think, "Oh,
That's a good
it is a good
I
idea.
want to do that.
It is a good idea, but it's $75 an hour. So yeah, per person. We looked into it before.
What if I own horses?
So while it's a good idea, it's subject to practical, practical constraints.
You guys. From college.
No, you said I did that, but I missed it.
It's when there's something that's
With parents or guardians' approval, listen to this requirement. With your parents or guardians' approval, connect with another scout your own age who has an identity that's different from yours. Every single scout has an identity different from yours. You guys are talking to people that are different from you right now.
Yeah, man.
But
I guess the outside.
let's compare Max and Lucas.
I was comparing the things like that about myself.
In trying to figure out what elements are part of their identity, we can say that like Max is an only child, Lucas has a brother, right? Is that an important part of their identity?
Yes.
Okay, if Max wears glasses, Lucas doesn't. Is that an important part of their identity?
He sees things different.
I see.
Yes. Okay, Max is talkative, Lucas is quiet usually. Is that an important part of their personality?
But it's wrong. He talks too much.
Okay. Okay, what about Max has white skin and Lucas has Mexican skin? Is that important?
Oh, you freaking
Is that an important part of their personality or their identity?
Part of their personality.
Identity.
No, it's not.
Okay. So
What?
everyone has an identity different from theirs, even brothers. Even like I said, even identical twins will end up being different in some respects. So people that are like completely different, different family structures, different backgrounds, are going to be very different from you. They put belief in the requirement. It says your identity is your trait, belief, or characteristics. Your belief is things that you can change. Your characteristics and traits are usually things that you cannot change. Personality traits maybe, but share with each other what makes a different aspect of your identity meaningful or special to you. This is kind of weird because you should.
Oh my gosh.
Snapchat.
So
Am I
the
trying to be
Snapchat
live?
AI says up here. I don't think it's productive to be proud of something you have no control over. It's better to focus on what you've accomplished. And I think that's good idea, good advice for everybody. So Snapchat is telling everyone that.
Yeah, but it's also
That's racist. Hey.
depending on
Absolutely.
That is, I don't. Can we go back? Read the second half. Read the second
Well,
half.
no, that part's not important. Hold on. Focus, guys. Requirement 6: share with your group a time you felt excluded from a group. Can you guys think of a time you're talking? You're talking. You have to share.
Dude, she felt upset about that one.
You feel when was the time you felt excluded from a group?
Guys.
Yeah, every time I was at ice skating rink, I went with 2 friends, and then they just hang out together and they're meeting like strangers.
Wow.
Ooh, nice.
Harsh.
I like that.
It's okay sometimes to not be part of a group, right?
Yeah.
Put the phones away. It's okay to not be part of every group sometimes. It's okay to or even be part of a group but not fit in.
Right?
Yeah.
Share with each other following. Savannah shared that. How did it make you feel to be excluded from your friend group? you shared. You felt left out. Okay. Okay, so imagine the situation. You attend a new school, you don't know anyone there, you notice they dress differently than you. I don't know, at lunchtime you decide to sit with a group. People at 2 tables tell you there's someone sitting in an empty seat, so you end up sitting by yourself. This is kind of a strange question
Are they
because,
lying?
yeah, well,
Okay, so that's the.
Okay.
what were you asking?
Are they lying about the empty? Is someone actually?
You don't know.
sitting
You
there?
don't know.
That.
All you said, you saw a group, walked up to them and said, "Can I sit here?" And they said, "No, this seat is taken." So you don't know if they're lying. And notice you only did it like 2 times. There's like probably 1,000 kids in the school. Maybe they will welcome you after you talk to them a bit more. What have you? You don't necessarily have to get your feelings hurt because you're excluded from groups. If this happened at your school, what would you do? I would move on with my life.
Yeah, I was gonna say not that big of a
I
deal.
don't think I'd ask someone I didn't know. I'd rather just sit like.
Well, it said you're new. Typically, you get to know the people that sit next to you in class. Discuss with your counselor what you learned from the discussion with your other staff. This is relating back to the first one where you talk to someone that has a different identity within you, which is literally every scout. What do you learn from them?
Everyone is unique.
Yes.
They all have opinions.
Very good.
And they
So, requirement 7, identify a person or individual in the community school or scouting has made a significant positive impact in promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion. If you feel that you don't have such an individual, you can research a historical figure. I have included a video, hopefully it will work, about someone who worked in diversity, equity, and inclusion. Hang on.
There'll be those who will not look beyond the picture of me shaking hands with a Klansman in a robe and hood. And of course, they'll have that visceral reaction like, what the hell is going on here?
It is something we never see. A black man attending KKK rallies where crosses are burning and racist views are being spewed.
Some of their beliefs are that African Americans, black people, are born with smaller brains, that we are inherently lazy, we are inherently prone to crime.
Despite that offensive ideology, Daryl Davis has spent decades befriending members of the Ku Klux Klan.
How do you talk to someone when someone's calling you the N-word?
Because you take the higher road. You know who you are.
There is one question Daryl has repeatedly asked members of the Klan.
How can you hate me when you don't even know me? They've never had an answer that they can come up with that justifies how they can hate me.
His conversations with Klansmen resulted in something Daryl never expected.
I would find things in common. And as I began to build on those commonalities, the things that we had in contrast as trivial as skin color began to matter less and less. And as I built upon those commonalities, a relationship was formed.
In the last 30 years, Daryl says 200 members across the country have left the KKK as a direct result of his involvement.
He was very vicious, very violent, and very racist. But at the very end, he said that he respected me.
Many of those who've left have given Daryl their robes and hoods. He keeps them in his home. It's a journey that is documented in the film Accidental Courtesy.
I consider Frank to be my friend.
I consider Daryl to be my friend as well.
What do you think about the current tension in America?
Talking about race in this country has been taboo for a very long time. People don't want to talk about it.
Daryl believes the only way to end racism is to confront it head on.
Progress is made when you give somebody a platform where they can express their views, even if you don't agree with them. When two enemies are talking, they're not fighting, they're talking. It's when the talking ceases that the ground becomes fertile for violence.
Gina Silva, Fox 11 News.
So sorry the video is a little bit choppy, but that's somebody I think has done a good job promoting diversity and inclusion. Yeah. So going back to that video, what do you think that guy's, let me go back 2 slides. Discover what inspired the individual, challenges they face, and share what you feel they attributed to their success. So what do you think inspired that guy?
Like the idea that people are just people, despite
Yeah.
anything, like
Yeah, that.
Learning about the beliefs of another group.
Yeah, a lot of times prejudice is fostered by not having interaction or exposure to different groups. Discuss with your counselor what you learned and how you can apply it in your life. What do you think you learned? Did you guys learn anything from watching that guy?
yes.
But
Yeah.
so what did you learn and how do you think you can apply it?
Don't be racist. That's a pretty big one. To someone.
Yeah.
On like equal grounds, you can just have a conversation.
Not only someone, but someone who specifically doesn't like you. You know, that's a great way to ameliorate those types of differences. I'm going to skip 2. One more. Come on.
Don't say that.
All right.
I bet you're gonna
Next requirement, with your help, parent or guardian, did you fall? No. Study an event that had a positive outcome on how society viewed a group of people to make them feel more welcome. Welcome is a weird word that they chose because it's not clear whether they're talking about them having rights or being accepted in society. I went with the accepted in society route. Most of you have probably heard of don't go in front. Most of you have probably heard of the Transcontinental Railroad. In the 1848 gold rush, a lot of immigrants came to California from China, and when they got here, a lot of especially the people that were from the United States that were prospecting gold were very prejudiced against them. So the Chinese people were having a very difficult time until they started building the Transcontinental Railroad from 1862 to 1869. And originally they tried to employ locals and then other types of immigrants, and they eventually found that Chinese immigrants were the best workers on the railroad. And it was because Chinese culture focused on work ethics and personal hygiene that made them valuable on construction crews where they worked long hours in dirty conditions. Like they would bathe regularly, they would boil their water before they drank it, so they got sick a lot less often. And that led to the rise of things like Chinatowns and stuff, and Chinese culture eventually becoming more accepted in the United States. Requirement 9, document and discuss with your counselor 3 or more areas in your life outside of scouting where you can actively provide stronger leadership and making others feel included. I highlighted the word actively there because in social justice theory, they want, remember, Hegel thought that ideas would naturally work themselves out, and then Marx comes along and says, no, we have to deliberately make them happen. That's why they focus on active engagement. It says actively provide leadership and making others feel included. Here I added a little comment that says if you want to feel included in a canoe, learn to row. It's not other people's job to make you feel included unless you are making the effort. Inclusion is good as long as the people you're including are making the effort to participate in the group. Document and discuss with your counselor 3 or more ideas in your life where you can provide stronger leadership and active listening. You guys ever heard of active listening? Yes. I think they teach it all now. It basically means like when someone else is talking, you make the choice to not form your ideas until you've heard what they said. It's a good habit. It is a good skill to learn in all kinds of situations, in work, in home life, just in situations in general. Document and discuss 3 or more areas of life outside scouting where you can actively provide strong leadership in creating an environment where others feel comfortable to share their ideas and perspectives. Do you think our troop has a environment where people feel comfortable sharing their ideas?
Relatively. Good
Uh,
Good enough?
If we excluded some people, then yes.
Well, we usually do
What?
allow. Hey, we usually do allow everyone to talk, but again, like I said before, ideas are subject to scheduling and also subject to assessment, because to see if it's something that we can do or not. Help others feel valued. How do we help other people feel valued?
Say that's a good idea.
Well,
not always. Just listen.
yeah, you can respect people and listen, but how they whether or not they feel valued is kind of like they're on them. Yeah.
Be better.
How you can provide stronger leadership and standing up for others. Do you guys have you guys ever had a situation where you had to stand up for someone else? Not
Actually, no.
actually, no.
Mixed it up.
So
This kind of didn't work.
yeah. I mean, it counts. It's not that counts.
Stop throwing bread and time.
It's not like he's allergic to rats.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Barely.
No, man. Stop throwing
Requirement 10: stereotypes. Discuss with your counselor how stereotyping people can be harmful. How stereotypes lead to prejudice and discrimination. Share your ideas with challenging assumption and celebrating individuality. We'll separate that. Hey, first, the challenging assumptions. It's good to challenge assumptions, but the point of challenging assumptions is to find good assumptions. If you challenge your assumptions and find out they're good, you keep your assumptions. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to always throw them out just because other people challenge your assumptions for you. As far as celebrating individuality, it's usually we usually celebrate merit. We don't celebrate people's individualism. Yeah. Just because you're unique doesn't mean you're useful. Activism. Scouting strives to help young people, develop young people into future leaders in their workplaces, schools, and communities. As you look to your current involvement in your school, family, scouting, community, think about how you'll have a positive impact in diversity, equity, and inclusion. So how are you guys going to have a positive impact in diversity, equity, and inclusion? The way to have a positive impact is to promote merit, reason, and individualism, and not recycled communism.
Wow.
Whoa.
At least they're recycling it.
Yes. Well, yeah, every time it doesn't work, they have to recycle it and try again.
Yeah, at least they're gonna reuse it.
Yeah.
And here again, it says, describe your ideas on how you can and will support others with different identities. Again, they threw the word and will because in social justice theory, you have to constantly be working to overthrow or tear down assumptions, tear down power structures, and replace them with marginalized people. Some guy on the internet said you're not doing woke unless you're doing woke activism.
What does that mean?
It means that woke means you're trying to change people. Yeah, what does it mean to you?
I don't know. I don't know the definition of woke. Exactly.
We're not making assumptions here.
Yeah.
I'm doing active listening.
Explain how including diverse thoughts and opinions from people with different identities can make interactions more positive. Again, just treating each individual person with respect. Expect them to treat you the same way is all you need to do to make interactions more positive. You don't need to focus on their differences from you. Explain how diverse thoughts and opinions from different identities can help benefit everyone by considering different opinions. That's weirdly phrased. I don't know what they're asking you. It's circular. It says here again, the merit badge is asserting that ideas come from identity. Like I said previously, that all Hispanic people think the same, all white people think the same, all Native Americans think the same, all Asians think the same. So to have diverse opinions, you have to have diverse physical characteristics. Give 3 examples of how limiting diverse input can be harmful. Meal planning, like if we were just going over this, meal planning, we have scouts that have special dietary needs, so if those people don't speak up, or some people just have preferences, if those people don't speak up, then the meal plan's not going to be as good as it could be. Legislation is the same way. We live in a pluralistic representative republic, so having different types of people, the reason we have senators from each state is because different states are different, and they're going to be concerned about different things. And that's true also of different races, different romantic preferences, all kinds of stuff. And designing a car, here you want diverse input because a car is a complex thing. Someone who is skilled in building the frame of the car might not be skilled in the electronics of the car. So you want difference in expertise. The merit badge doesn't ask for examples of how limiting diverse income or how diverse input could be beneficial. That's because there's a one-sided question. But the first one is emergencies. If you guys look up here, in an emergency, like if there's a car accident and somebody's bleeding, that's not the time to be like taking polls and like asking different people what they think should be done. Like somebody's bleeding, you're gonna take care of it right away and not like beat around the bush asking for people's opinions. Scientific experiments also usually want to control. You need to know all of the elements that you're controlling for. And having a baby is not something you want diverse input in. And none of you have had a baby, but from what I've heard, give 3 examples of how considering diverse inputs can lead to innovation and success. The examples I came up with: customer service. Again, if let's say you have a large company, customers call in with problems. If you have a diverse customer base, you're going to want customer service that understands different people and their different needs. Building furniture, you can design furniture in different ways. It does not have to be the same. And school curriculum also. Different people may learn in different ways, so altering the school curriculum, some may be more visual, some may be more repetitive, some may be more open-ended. It'll help different people learn. Again, the merit badge asks a one-sided question, so I'm providing the other side. Doesn't ask for how diverse opinions can lead to confusion and failure. Engineering a bridge is not something where you want to do it by committee. Typically, you want people that are competent. Even if you have 2 or 3 people, they're going to all have the same kind of expertise. Writing a novel, typically just one person writes a novel. Novels don't come out good when they're written by committees. And repairing machines is usually a small 1 or 2 person job. The goal of the Citizenship and Society merit badge is to manipulate you into thinking like a Marxist. However, we believe the world is good. We believe that everyone can see reality and think objectively. And we believe that anyone can improve themselves, so equality is enough. We don't need to promote equity. We need to give people equality and let them work as much as they want to and achieve what they want. And this is my personal opinion. It's not part of the badge, but it says there cannot be an equity merit badge because equity is the opposite of merit. Equity means to each according to their abilities. And merit, that's merit, means to each according to their ability. Equity means from each according to their ability. And Dirty Santa disagrees with me, but we don't listen to him. So that is the completed presentation. So now that we've covered all the topics, it is up to you guys to get the books, and whenever you see fit, explain in your own words all these terms.